Yeah, okay, time to live free. Plenty goals I'm achieving. Some real life topics and talking financial freedom. Mindset, soul and love, everything in between. This is Freedom Podcast. Tune in, live free. Hey, got my mindset right and I got the drive. Planning one day, no more job, no more 9 to 5. Love money, mine. Love money, mine. This is freedom. Tune in, cause it's going down. Woo!
Hi, this is Anna, and welcome to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. In this episode, I introduce Sabine. Sabine is a coach, and she'll help you untangle your brain spaghetti, helps you organise and anchor all of your ideas into a single concept that you feel aligned with. She helps you figure out what you really want to do as an entrepreneur so that you can center your niche and avatar around a meaningful mission you're totally inspired by. So if you really want to understand and know your worth, Sabine is the person for you. You're going to really love this interview. Hi, Sabine. It's great to get you on the show.
Thanks, Anna. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And so for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, hello, you'll be able to see that I look like I've got this angel behind me, but it is actually just the sun that's going through the window. We do have sun here in the UK. And you'll notice that Sabine's got a little bit of an accent, although you live in London, don't you? I know you're down
I live
south.
in Cornwall, so I'm quite jealous actually because you've got sun and I don't know why.
I was trying to think when we first connected as well. I think we first properly connected this year. But I'd seen you around for a while, but our paths hadn't properly crossed for us to speak, So it's really this year that I've really got to know you. And the one thing that I always think about you is, our unique zone of genius, that phrase when you got all of us coaches together and the work that you've been doing, that we do, with Inside Launch You, I love that phrase, your zone of genius. And I think that kind of sums you up quite nicely with this whole thing around, untangling your brain spaghetti. I love that phrase as well.
the dreaded brain spaghetti.
And so I know that you help people really find that, being identity mentor, sort of finding that zone of genius that they have inside them. But I'm really curious because I don't know this, like how this all began, because I know you've been in the UK now a few years, haven't you?
Yeah, we've been here in December. It'll be 5 years that we've been in the UK.
Okay.
Moved away from South Africa. Yeah, time flies when you're having fun and working hard.
Exactly. So how did this all begin then for you?
So yeah, thanks for asking that. I don't get to share that often. And, it came out of being an entrepreneur, in South Africa and feeling like I was really pulled from pillar to post. It was a construction business, which was really great, but it was very hard because I was working nonstop. So we were successful, but you could only stay successful if you were there all the time. I know a lot of people can relate to that who would, potentially be listening to this show. And so that's how I got interested in online business. When we moved, we were actually looking for a business to buy. We wanted something a little bit more automated, and I'd never looked at online in my life. I was the biggest tech phobe on the planet. And so we found Launch You, and I started learning about affiliate marketing. And what had happened was I learned, the A to Z of how to bring a lead in, how to make a sale. And I was very confronted after that because I realized I now had to continue to communicate with my audience that I'd brought in. And I was really wondering, well, what value do I really bring? And I felt extremely inadequate, really kind of comparing myself to a lot of the successful entrepreneurs that I was looking at around me, and questioning whether I had, in fact, any value whatsoever to give. Now, what was really important to me was to create a business of substance, a business that had some kind of meaning. I didn't want to be making money for the sake of making money. I needed to make an impact. That was really like at the core of everything that I was doing. I didn't want to wake up at the end of my life going, what have I really done? So that's what was really driving me. I didn't want to I didn't want to get to the end of my life not having all this unfulfilled potential. So it was a huge mission, not only from a perspective of, well, how do I add value as an entrepreneur in this marketplace? But, how do I do it in a way that's meaningful to me? And so there wasn't anybody around at the time. I was really knocking on different coaches' doors and asking people, well, how do I figure that out? No one could
Yeah.
really help me. They were kind of pointing me to, oh, you should go check out Ikigai or whatever, but there were no practical steps. I need things broken down really simply. Like, you can't just give me theory. I'm one of those people that, like, I really need it broken down in a really simple format. And so I was like, okay, I've got to really dig deep. So what I did is I broke everything down to find what my value was. And what I realized is that it stemmed all the way back from childhood, because I didn't have like self-worth. I didn't believe that anything that I was doing, I'd accomplished loads of different things, but I didn't have that self-worth. And so that's where the identity piece comes in. It's about, what is your identity as an entrepreneur? What is your identity as a human being? How do you tie them together, and how do you create something that's meaningful? So does that answer your question as to where it came from?
It does, because I think I also, when I ventured on my online journey, everyone talks about finding your why, don't they? And I was like, yeah, I'm doing this for my kids and this, that, and the other. And then a few years in, I started thinking, this sounds really selfish, but am I doing it for my kids? Like, that is part of it. But I think there's a deeper thing of me that, like you're saying, that I just want to create this purpose. I want to make a difference. I think it was when I read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
Yeah.
And in fact, I read that when I was in the corporate world, because we had this really quite inspiring manager when I then lost him for a non-inspiring manager. But at one point I did have a really cool manager who really focused on a lot of like this kind of stuff, the self-development type of stuff. And he made us all read it. And it was when I was in like my 20s. So I was all like, I just want to make money. Do you know what I mean? I want big this in the corporate world, I just want to make money. And then it was when I think Stephen, it was begin with the end in mind, where you visualize your funeral. That really, really impacted me. Like, thinking about who was going to turn up, what people were going to say about you. And all of that started to make me want to start doing my own thing. Even though obviously my manager was trying to inspire me to stay in the corporate world, but it started making me think about, well, actually, I want people to say that. I want people to say that I made a difference. I want people to say that I helped them. I want them, you know what I mean? All these different things. And it wasn't until I kind of went through that work that I kind of got things in a little. I thought, is it selfish to say that my why? Yes, I am doing it for freedom, to be a better mum, to be able to choose the time I spend with them. But actually, there's a deeper sense of purpose here, that it isn't just about that. It's something for me as well, like within that like identity part, really.
Absolutely.
And I think it's interesting what you say about when you were a child, because I've done a lot of reading and work and things about, like limiting beliefs and things like that, because it does stem, doesn't it, from the first 7 years of your life. That it's like, if somebody that was pivotal, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's another family member or family friend or a teacher saying something to you that really sticks in your head, that actually makes you do things in a different way. That's why I think teachers are really pivotal in that inspirational piece, because someone can just make a comment that they think is a flippant comment, and actually it really digs deep and hurts you. And then you think that you're not great at something that actually could have been awesome at. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. But also, I mean, on the other hand, you could also have a comment that inspires you to do something great. And the thing is that I really believe that the things that we experienced as traumas and hurts, no matter how significant or insignificant we think it is, those are the weapons we have to create a life of purpose and meaning. It's incredible how those are gifts. They're gifts. They're amazing. So when you start doing that work and you start seeing like how you can make a choice you can make a choice to see something that trod you down and broke you as, you know, being a victim of that, or turning it around and being like a warrior for that, you know?
Exactly.
So,
You're speaking my language, because I talk about my 3 pillars on the podcast, and having gone through the whole domestic violence, domestic abuse, whenever I talk about it, in fact, I was doing a speaker event a couple of weeks ago, and I've not done any sort of like in-person speaking for a while. It's always behind my laptop, and I was a bit nervous because you're in a full, room of people. I could feel my knees wobbling because we had all this music intro as I got on the stage. I was like, oh my God, I'm so used to being in the comfort of my office. And I openly talk about domestic abuse. And I know when I do it, that it's like a bit of a taboo topic, that people think that I'm going to be like, I don't know, maybe it's my perception that I think that people think that I'm going to be like, this victim, you know what I mean? Whereas when I share it, I'm sharing it from a place exactly like you said, of like, this actually I'm really grateful for it, weirdly. Don't get me wrong. If I could turn back the clock, surely I wouldn't have wanted to have been strangled and all the horrible things that happen. But the person it's made me, and the kind of like the fire in my belly that it's given me, to not only want to try and inspire my children to say, look, we don't know what's ahead of us in life, do we? None of us do. But whatever happens, you can get through absolutely everything. And actually, you can turn that into a lesson and a learning, and kind of help it fuel you to be able to, live your dreams and whatever you want to do. And it also enables you to help other people that might have gone through the same, or help other people that have gone through something that has been traumatic. Just, it gives you a bit of a toolbox thing. And I obviously spent a lot of time on my own, focusing on my sort of insecurities, and actually loving myself a lot more because of that. Because before then, I was too bothered. When I look back, I think I was too bothered about what other people thought about me, or what wanting to be liked and all that kind of stuff. Whereas we still kind of, I can't say I don't give a shit about what people think about me, but I still, we all care to a certain extent, but it doesn't bother me as it did. Now it's more about me and how I can help people.
Exactly.
But my 3 pillars are freedom in love, which is about self-care and self-love, and also just the love that we give out to the world, because these 3 pillars have given me equilibrium in my life. Self-care and self-love is important, especially for me being a single parent, giving, saying I was fine when I wasn't. And so it's important for me now, daily, weekly, to making sure that I just pause sometimes, go on walks. It's not just about planning like a spa break every 6 weeks, it's about doing this routinely thing, having time for me, and also loving myself, and loving my mistakes.
Embracing them, for sure, definitely.
So that's one pillar. The other pillar is money, because I don't care what anyone says, it's not all about money. But when I was struggling financially, the equilibrium, the seesaw balance was like that. So money enables me to be able to choose the things that I want to buy or have, or the freedom and the lifestyle, and not be stressed about it. Nothing worse than being stressed financially. And then the final pillar is mind. But to be honest, mind, I will say this, mind is much deeper than the word mind. And for me, it's not about being positive all the time. It's about always, never stop learning as regards to self-development, always being open to hear different people's points of view, or different concepts, or just always looking at ways to improve that. Things trigger me still. Something will happen and I'll think, but I can then digest it and go, Anna, you're overreacting. You still need to heal that part of it. Let's break it down. This is all in my head. And it's just about being able to, whatever happens in the future, allowing myself, and a therapist taught me this, allowing myself just to like go, you know what, I'm having a shit day, and releasing that. And then, but knowing that tomorrow is going to be a bit different, I'm just having a bad day, or this has happened, and I've got to digest it, because we can't be perfect all the time. Which I sometimes question with my boys. I saw Jacob yesterday because it was his birthday, get dressed up, do all this live thing, and then get changed into something else. He was obviously pretending something online. And I was like, these youngsters, there's all this perfect thing that they're focusing on, this digital world on social media and TikTok. It must be so much more pressure than it was when I was a kid. That sometimes, are they comfortable in being themselves? I'm not sure, you know. It's always something that I'm trying to work on them with, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you can relate to any of those.
Totally. You know, it comes down to self-worth again, and what you believe to be important for yourself. So when it comes to you, like you talk about your 3 pillars and why you have them, like it's so amazing to have that awareness, you know. And I remember taking somebody through one of my programs, and, you know, at the moment we're kind of redoing all the communication, and I was talking with one of the team members, and she was saying to me, I remember this testimonial, and it was somebody who said, I think everybody should do this work, you know, because it's not that we don't know who we are, but if you haven't done work where you are able to know why you believe what you believe, so that, like you say, Anna, like knowing, okay, I have to do self-love because I believe this, so this is what it does for me. I believe that money is important because X, Y, and Z. And I also believe that mind is important because we need to know that we can overcome any barriers. And that also allows us to be able to connect with the people who believe what we believe, so that, you know, we can, you know, have partnerships with the right connections, really, you know. And then you talk about your kids, about their identity as well. When we are confident in who we are, then we don't need to feel inadequate or like we have to pretend to be someone we're not.
Yeah, exactly. But because you just made me think of something then, that, you know, we identify a lot of the time, don't we, with what people do as a job. So it's like, oh, you know, that person's a police officer, or they're a teacher or a doctor. We put different kind of occupations on a pedestal sometimes. And that was one of the reasons why I put this podcast together, because I think our stories are much more powerful. Not that you'd want to go into a social setting and, you know, you say a restaurant or a bar and you go, hey, what's your story? But finding out someone's journey a bit more, rather than just identifying them by their occupation, can help us get a lot more understanding of their identity, of what they stand. Like you say, when you've identified my 3 pillars and just what we sort of stand for, everybody's sort of been on a journey. And that's why, you know, we see in the news, don't we, good and bad doctors, good and bad police officers, good and bad teachers. You know, there's always these different, we're constantly about their occupation, where we identify. And I think a lot of people, when you've been brought up in the traditional schooling as well, everything's all about going to university, getting this career, society will always focus on this, like, identity of your job.
Totally. Oh, I have so much to say around that. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, okay, so there is a common thread. And this is something that, like, if you're kind of trying to find your anchor, or you're trying to find, like, what is the thing that I really want to do, and then create a meaningful mission out of, like, one of the things you can do is kind of go through your story and identify common threads. And one of the common threads that I have in, you know, my story, I am a, you know, a sexual abuse survivor. And I struggled with my identity, and I struggled with kind of feeling worthwhile. But then I also got into high school, and you talk about, like, feeling like we have to conform to a certain way that society expects us. So if you're this, you're successful. If you're that, not so much. You know, and so I couldn't put myself into a box. And I love that saying by Einstein, where he says, you can't judge a fish by the way it climbs a tree. And what I thought was, like, how unfair is it that I only have a certain amount of things to choose from in terms of a career or whatever? And I believe that, you know, when we get into sort of the later part of our lives, there is so much value that we have to offer. And so when we look at the common threads in terms of what we believe about the world, what we believe about our place in the world, that's where we can start to form the anchor of like who we are and what we stand for. Because it is about beliefs, you know, it is about, like you talk about certain things that are formed in us from a really early age, but it's also about the memories that we have that are really stuck in our minds, that have created the values that we have. Because if you think about the values that you have, let's just say you value friendship or commitment or work ethic or family, whatever it is. Why do you value those things? Why do you value those things? What's important? What happens when you don't have them? What happens when you do have them? And then that starts to help to kind of go, well, what if we could have a world with more of what you really value? What would that world be like? How could you make a difference in the world if you brought those values? So it's a process of trying to, so you really start off by trying to find what's really meaningful to you in terms of your beliefs.
I like that. So for people who could be listening to this going, I'm really loving this conversation, and I really love this South African accent, Sabine. If they're thinking this, but I'm stuck and I'm doing this and I've always got this and they're feeling really stuck about where to even start, what would you advise them to do if they're thinking, I don't even know what value I have, and to be honest, I've got pretty much low self-worth?
So one of the places that you can start is where I developed a process called the 5 elements of UVP. So I'll break them down really quickly. UVP being your unique value proposition. I spent many years in radio helping clients from like little startups to big corporations and governments and whatever to find what made them stand out. I had to go and interview them, find out what made them special, what made them unique. And then we needed to write 30-second ads for them. So I would have to brief the copywriting team who only had between 90 and 100 words to actually write an ad. So you really had to do your homework in terms of what was important. Jeepers, you know, is it important that you were founded in 1918? Not really. So what is going to actually connect somebody on an emotional level to this business? And so what I did was I was like, okay, so what skills do I have that I can transfer into, into an entrepreneurial space that could be of value? And so if you're wondering, like you're thinking, I don't know what value I could look at, what I created are the 5 elements that encompass most of who you are. So if you extract what you believe in, this is what Anna and I were just talking about, like with values. So what you believe in, what do you believe about the world? What do you believe about your place in the world? And start with your values, your top 10 values, your top 3 values. The second one is your gifts, your natural gifts and talents. Like those are the things that you don't have to really work hard on to become really good at. And those are the things, just to give you a clue, if you're kind of going at a bit of a loss, I don't really know what my natural gifts are. Ask people around you and also think about, what do you get complimented on? These are really often things that are not obvious. You know, it might be your empathy.
Even suppose if someone has lost their way a bit, because I'm just thinking about like when I was in my sort of like down period, you kind of think, well, I'm not good at anything, I'm not this, I'm not that. But actually, what did people compliment you or previously? Do you know what I mean?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You might be in a place where you're just feeling completely down. And so, and this is actually where I was when I did this exercise. And so I put everything down. I wrote everything down in one place. So the second one is your gifts and talents. Remember the compliments you've received. The third one is your skills and experience. Think about not only your skills and experience from a work perspective, but also in life. You know, you've gone through certain things in life, overcome certain things. Your story is really important. And what do you really care about that you could, you know, help another human being with, from your soft skills to your hard skills? And then finally, like, you know, what are your passions? And a lot of people go, I don't have any passions. I don't know what my passions are. And so, I'm interested in a few things, but I don't really know what my passions are. Write everything down. I didn't have any passions. That was one of my biggest problems, is that I wanted to have a business I loved. I wanted to have a business with like a meaningful mission, but I was like, I don't have any obvious passions that I can turn into a business. I'm not like a musician or an art. Yeah, a lot of people feel like that. And so what you find is that sometimes your passion can be cultivated when you put all of these elements down into one place. And I do a workshop called Discovering You Inc., where you have like guided questions where you can answer specific questions, and it will help extract those things that you wouldn't naturally do on your own. And so it's looking at all those elements and then brainstorming what gaps in the market there are, you know, asking yourself questions like, what experiences have I had that I could have done better, that could have been better, that I could have delivered in a better way? And so it's really, instead of isolating one thing and going, where's there a gap in the market, and not considering all your other elements at the same time, you're going to have quite a one-dimensional business. But it's about creating those different dimensions by assessing yourself in a holistic manner so that you're able to identify the common threads between your natural gifts, your beliefs, your passions, your skills, your experience, so that you can begin to brainstorm. When we were in radio, it was hard. You know, we once had a client that was a butter spread. It wasn't even proper butter. It was like half butter and half oil, whatever. And they wanted to be known as they actually wanted to be known as like a Red Bull. And we were like, really? So we had to go into the boardroom, all of us, and brainstorm. You know, we all came into the boardroom. We were creatives. We all came into the boardroom dry with no ideas, just like you might be feeling. So even though we were creatives, we were also dry. So you've got to put ideas into the hat before you can start to form something that might have any kind of substance or any kind of like legs, as we would call it. And so when you have all of the different pieces, the client wants to do a bucket list. But did you know that the client really values excitement and adventure? Wow, okay. And what else do they want? So when you've got all of these elements put together, you can start to work with that. You know, sometimes I would come up with ideas, you know, the boardroom would be buzzing. This is so random. Boardroom would be buzzing and everyone would be contributing their ideas. I was quite new in radio at the time and I was like, should I contribute? Should I contribute? And then I'd say something and the whole boardroom went quiet and they'd all look at me, say nothing, and then carry on. And I'd be like, that was such a dumb idea. The thing is that sometimes you're going to have ideas that are not going to work.
Exactly.
And that's okay.
That is okay, isn't it? Yeah. It's just like about fully brainstorming them. And I think this is great that we can do with our kids, because I did something similar, not all of those. I was like taking notes in my head. That my son has recently been diagnosed with dyslexia, and he's got this whole thing that he thinks is stupid and dumb. He struggles with English and maths and stuff, but he is so creative, and he's also got so much more common sense. My other son, even though I shouldn't compare, but you know, like he's the younger one. He's the one that gets the front door key. Do you know what I mean? Compared to the other one, so it's just like we were listing all these different things. You know, I was trying to kind of boost his confidence a little bit because he was feeling like he's really dumb. So it's an interesting exercise that you can do with, because I think there are a lot of children since COVID that do feel a little bit underconfident, and it kind of can start these. We can have these beliefs, can't we, at an early age, that we can't do something. I remember like having this thing of my sister always cooked, as a youngster, and I really just never really got to. And I just got like branded that I couldn't cook. But I remember feeling like I've never really been given the opportunity. And that stemmed into my adult life.
Oh, jeepers, yeah.
Even though I know I can cook.
Wow, isn't that incredible? And that's another thing that's so important to kind of look at, well, what are your beliefs? What is your deep ingrained belief about yourself and what you're capable of and what you can bring? And that's a really important piece to kind of look at, that we do look at in the Discovering You process. It's about really like, what do you believe about yourself and your capabilities and what you're, some people believe only some people have a life's purpose. I don't, and I'm just gonna go and earn money, in a way that I always have, and accept that I don't have anything special because it's only for some people. And that's not true. That's not true. The other thing that's not true, because, you talk about your son's belief, that is totally not true. And it stems back to that Einstein quote about you can't judge a fish by the way it climbs a tree. You might have common sense and you might not be good at English and maths. There's different things, and we need to celebrate what we're good at instead of trying to plug the holes of the pieces that we're not good at. We must celebrate
focus on
those.
what you're really good at. He loved art. He loved. He didn't want to do performance arts because he was doing years ago. He was brilliant at it, but in his previous school, he didn't really focus much on it. We had COVID, and they weren't doing it, and this and the other. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to put you down for performance arts. He came back the other day doing this whole dance routine, this African beat song and everything, and he just was like in his element. And I said afterwards, I'm so glad I pushed you into it because I could see it. But you couldn't see it yourself, and I can see you really enjoying it. It was like, yeah. So
that's amazing.
Nice. It's so nice to see him getting happier again. Not fully, because he's still, because still school is like very regimented. They do focus a lot on the gaps, you know what I mean? Whereas I'm like, I actually said to him recently, look, forget all that. Let's just focus on what you're really good at,
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly it. And I think the fact that you're teaching him that now is so important. It really is, because I think we get brought up in a society where we have to be plugging the holes of where we fall short. And so it makes us feel even more inadequate instead of trying to embrace the things that we have and that we're good at and that we already love and enjoy, and brainstorming, how could that come together to be this beautiful, holistic offering,
Yeah. Because I said to her, imagine, you've got like your performance arts here and you've got your English and maths, right? I said, we could put all our energy into English and maths, and you may just get to the level of where you need to get to after putting all this energy in. But I said, your performance arts, imagine if we put in that same energy with that, you're just going to fly,
Absolutely. Oh, you go, Mama. That's awesome.
It is, I think it is really important, isn't it? But then it's, obviously the system and the schools focus on different things, but I'll keep plugging away on that, on the inspirational piece of the side. I think it's important for us adults as well, isn't it? That's how you really
definitely. And also, can I say that I believe that when you are in your element, and I believe that it's actually very much tied to freedom, but when you're in your element, your zone of genius, that space where you're celebrating all the elements of who you are, suddenly you get this, it's like an extra boost of ability to do the things you never thought you could do before. And I'll give you an example of that. When I was learning about online business, I was so afraid of tech, and it was really limiting me in a massive way. What I realized when I found my zone of genius where I could really add value, and that gave me so much confidence, suddenly the thing that I thought was really hard suddenly wasn't that hard. It's the most amazing thing, because when you don't have self-worth, everything else becomes harder. When you've got self-worth, you figure out the rest of the stuff along the way. It's such a boost to your confidence, to your sense of self-worth, and to your ability to overcome obstacles, because you feel you're operating in a space of freedom.
Yeah, exactly. Love it. I love it. I feel like me and you could chat on this for like hours.
Yes, I do. I agree.
Got similar like thoughts on it. And so for people who, because I've seen loads of people online that have really, huge clout for you and testimonials for you, where they've said, I went on a call with Sabine and it's just really opened my eyes, or I found my identity now, or just going through that, I just feel so much clearer. And so you can help so many different people, and I know you do this on a daily basis. But I know you're also talking about putting like a smaller group together, sort of like 4 or 5 people, aren't you? So I don't know if you want to tell everybody about that, because some people who are listening to this might want to reach out to you. And for anybody that does want to reach out to Sabine, if you look on the show notes, if you're listening to us on Spotify or iTunes, you'll be able to see her email address to reach out directly to her. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll be able to see it all in the comment section, so you can go straight there. But tell us about the group idea you were putting together.
Brilliant. So, so because this is such a personal process, it's a very personal process to go through. So I'm taking a very small amount of people through this process, a maximum of 5 people. So you can get hold of me via email. And the way that it works is we take you through your 5 elements of UVP, but then we get really deep into your story. So what is your story? We uncover where your values formed and how they formed and why you value what you value, so that you can create a vision and mission statement for yourself as a human being. And you almost see yourself as like an organogram, where you start to kind of go, who am I at the holding company? What do I stand for? In and out of work, in family, friends, work, play, whatever it is, so that you are rock solid. You are anchored to something that you feel so passionate about. And then what we do is we start brainstorming concepts and ideas based on your experience, based on, all the work that you've done, the things that you're passionate about, to create a business that really has meaning and it's more of a long-term business, because the last thing you want to do is work your butt off for 5 years and then come to the end of those 5 years and go, I cannot do another day of this. I want to start again. I want to reinvent myself. You want to create, it's for those people who want to create a legacy. It's for those people who don't want to get to the end of their lives and go, what have I done? People who really want to be intentional about how they live. And not spend, because we work a lot of the time, and why not do something that ties into who you are as a human being? So if any of your any people that are watching would like to be considered for this cohort, they can email me at sabine@becomingyouinc.com.
Yeah, I love it. I love that, becoming you, because it is becoming you. And if you think about what I said previously about Stephen Covey and your funeral, visualizing your funeral, what people say about you and your, legacy and all that kind of stuff. I went through this with my dad recently, because I built him a website because he wanted to put everything on there. And I was like, you do realise I'm going to have to carry on hosting it when you pass away. We openly talk like this, because I was brought up with him being a financial advisor. He's always planning his death. He was planning his retirement. He was planning his will, planning his death. We sort of laugh and joke about it. And I said, well, Jacob, my eldest, has got to host my website if anything happens to me, so I'll have to tell him he needs to host yours now forever. It's going to keep getting passed down the generation. But yeah, it's thinking about the legacy and your purpose, isn't it? And about what you really stand for and what you really believe in, what is your worth, and the whole passion of what you want to deliver in your life. Because like you, I believe everyone has that. Everyone deserves that.
And it's not about, I know that there are a huge amount of people out there who don't believe that they have anything particularly special to offer or anything that's worthwhile to extract, and so they'd rather just choose something mundane. But the truth is that you can discover, you actually, it's a process of discovery, that every single person has the absolute gold within them, that if just mind is like, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Really passionate about helping people see that, because I think you're right about what you said earlier. You could be marred by one comment from when you were little and keep believing that your whole life. But what if you could overcome that? What if you could really find a way that you felt that you were adding a huge amount of value and contributing to the world in your unique way?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the work that you're doing. So I think you can help so many different people. And like you say, it's really beautiful finding that zone of genius, or that pot of gold really inside each of us really. So if anyone is listening to this, I do encourage you just to reach out and just see if this cohort is for you. Because I know Sabine won't bite. She'll have a chat with you and discuss whether it's appropriate for you to work with her. So do reach out to her. It's been great having you on the show and getting to know your journey in a little bit more detail. I always ask everybody, what does freedom mean to you? And what we have done on the birthday episodes is we've chopped some of these answers back to back, because it's quite good listening to different people's version of it, because obviously there's no right or wrong. And actually, if I was asked it 10 years ago, I know it would have been totally different than what I would answer it now. So what does freedom mean to you, Sabine?
I would say freedom is, I'm convinced that freedom, or true freedom, is achieved when we find the unique way that we contribute to the world and then serve in our unique way. I believe we were created to serve others. And when we know our unique way of serving, that is when we operate in our true sense of freedom.
Yeah. Because you've discovered who you really meant to be.
Yeah.
And
when you discover who you really meant to be.
Yeah, you can be comfortable just to be free to be you, rather than being this version that you feel that so-and-so thinks you should be, or society thinks you should be.
Absolutely. When you discover your true identity, that's when true freedom begins in your life.
I love that. Yeah, brilliant. It's been great having you on the show. I think you're really inspiring. You always get me to think even more deeper every time we have a chat. So you've definitely got a real power about you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been such a privilege to be on this show with you. Thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah, no worries. And I will speak to you soon.
Okie dokie. Have an amazing day.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And if you want to get more freedom in your life, then come and join Your Freedom Project Facebook group, which the link is below in the comments section. And I am giving you a copy of my visualization manifesting book. So manifest more freedom in your life and live the life of your dreams.
Hey, thank you for listening. Hope you had a blast. Here to elevate your life. It's the Freedom Podcast. Love, money, mine. Love, money, mine. Wanna see you all win. Wanna see you all shine. Just make sure that you subscribe. Bringing good vibes. Join the Facebook group. Now it's time to change your life. Hope you come back. Right now is the chance. This is an experience. It's the Freedom Podcast. Hey.